How's it going? Dave from Comic Book Investment. In this video, we're going to do something way different. We're going to do 5 key video games that are dropping massively in price. Now, why am I doing video games? Well, I mentioned a long time ago that I've been toying with video games a little bit. So this is kind of an update on how that market is going, and it's going terribly. I'll just put it straight to you. Video games have dropped massively. There's still some that are, hitting all-time highs, but overall, the video game market is pretty much massively dropping. There's a bunch of reasons for that. I'll just show you some video games, and then we can go more into those details. All right, first up, we got Mario Kart 64, a 9.6 at its peak back in April, so not too long ago, sold for $144,000. Now a 9.6 is selling for $48,000. That is down 67%. That is quite a lot. That person just lost basically $100,000. Now, with video games, there's not that many sales, so I can't just do like, oh, let's do a 9.6, let's do a 9.0, let's do an 8.0, like all that kind of stuff. There's barely any sales. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, they're kind of new. Like WADA video game grading is pretty new. They had VGA, but that's not really seen as... It's like CGC versus CBCS. Like WADA seen as the higher one. CGC is actually going to be grading video games pretty soon. So that'll mean more data as time goes on. Another reason why is just simply, there's a lot of people, there's not a lot of time to be grading this stuff. CGC has been out since I think 2000, 2002. So you have so much years of history of data. This one, WADA's been out for a couple years. VGA, So you don't really have a lot of history of people sending in their graded games. Next, we got Pokemon Red on Game Boy. A 9.8 sold at its peak in November for $84,000. One just recently sold for $45,000. That's down 46%. I mean, this is a top grade one, and it got hit hard. One of the reasons why is when you get the top grade kind of thing, you're going to see a lot bigger drops because all of a sudden people think, hey, out of the gate, this is the only 9.8 there is. And so they buy it for a lot of money. Then all of a sudden you realize, oh, wait, he has a 9.8. He just got graded. He just got one graded, came back a 9.8. And all of a sudden it gets supply and demand. All of a sudden that once was thought as just one 9.8, now there's 10, 20, 30. Who knows how many there's going to be at the end of this. Video games is still kind of new. There's going to be a lot more high graded video games coming out. And then the ones that you find that are super rare and you realize, hey, I'm the only one with a 9.8 for the last 5 years, then that will go up more. Next, we got Resident Evil on the PlayStation 1. A 9.6 in October sold for $264,000, now one selling for $192,000, down 27%. Not as much as the other ones, but it's still over $60,000, almost $70,000. Or is it 70? I think it's 70, yeah. Over a $70,000 drop. Think about that. That's a lot of money. What could you do with $70,000? I could do quite a bit with it. I wouldn't buy this video game, that's for sure, but to each their own. Some people that collect this probably, wouldn't buy comics. Maybe they would. I don't know. But the thing is, I guarantee you the person that bought this Resident Evil and most of these video games are not collectors. They're speculators and investors. I'll use the term investors loosely. And they're hoping to cash in real quick. But here is the thing. If you look back at old CGC sales, when they first came out, there were ones going that have never, ever hit that sale again. For example, like a SpiderMan, I don't know, like 26. Back in the day, a 9.6 would pop up and it would sell for I'm just pulling these numbers out of my butt. It would sell for $20,000 because people would think that's the highest grade. Oh my gosh, got to jump in. And this is when CGC was brand new, just like WADA is. And then as time went on, people realized, oh, there's actually multiple 9.6s. Oh, and now there's actually multiple 9.8s. So it's out of the gate. A lot of these people think that they're the only ones that exist, but they don't realize how many collectors or investors or whatever people just have raw copies laying around. And a lot of people tout, oh, these are sealed. They were meant to be played with. Not like comic books where they were meant to be read, and if you read it very carefully, you could still keep it in a 9.8, 9.6 grade. These, everyone opened them. Not the case. You'll see more and more of these sealed stuff coming up. I've watched videos like before Wata existed, and I've seen people, this one guy would collect distribution boxes of sealed Nintendo games. And each distribution box came with a pack of 6. So you get 6 sealed games, and he would collect those. All right, next we got Sonic number 1. A 9.6 is down 67% from 312,000 to 102,000. That is a drop of $210,000 since October, so almost a year. Man, I can't believe someone paid $312,000 to begin with. First of all, these Sonic Sega games, they're in a hard shell case, so they're a lot easier to get in higher grade than something that has like a Nintendo game where it's like, you could really, you drop it, it really damages it. So there's that. Oh my gosh, $312,000. Think of this. What comic book goes for $312,000? Just a handful, right? Just a handful. Not even a 9.8 Hulk 181. No Bronze Age will go for $312,000. The closest you got is a Turtles 1 first print that I think hit like $264,000. But still, that's not 300. So what do you really have? You basically, you have to get in the Silver Age, and you have to have the tippity-top grades of those Silver Age. Looking at like a SpiderMan, maybe like a 9.4 would go for that price. Things like that. And these are all stuff like back in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s. This is, I think this is from like 1990 something. I don't know what it is. Either late 80s or early 90s. Going for $312,000. That is insane to me. That is the problem with video games, is they jumped up way too fast because people were jumping on. And the reason why comic books are worth so much, and yes, you're seeing drops like this in comics by 60%, 70, 80%. I do that every single week. But the difference is you're not seeing those in the top grade. You're not seeing a 9.8 Fantasy 15 dropping by 67%. You're not. You're seeing those more in the hype books than like the lower levels, like in, the $100 to maybe a few $1,000s. But nothing in like the top level. Like you might see some dropping a little bit, but nothing really that much in the top level stuff. Like even the Hulk 181. Hulk 181 just broke its record for over $100,000 for a 9.8. But you'll see ones in the lower grade ranges, like a 5.0 or something like that, dropped by like 30, 40% from its peak. But why didn't the Hulk 181 in the top grade? Because there's a difference. They have a long history of collectors wanting this stuff. It's supply and demand. There's not that much supply of these top grades. But when you get into like if you want a 5.0 roughly, you can get a 4.5, 4.0, 5.0, 5.5, 6.0, and there's hundreds of them. So it's really easy to find. All right, last one on the list is SpiderMan from Atari. A 9.8 back in 2020 sold for $9,000. That is down 88%. One currently sold for $11.40. Wow. Imagine that you buy it for $9,000 and now it's selling for basically $1,000. That is a huge, huge drop. I don't even think I've seen a comic. I might have seen a comic at 88%, but I think that's the highest I've ever seen a comic. This is insane. And it's only going to go down. Why? This is why. When Wata first came out and before Wata, you could find these sealed games all over the place because there's just no one wanted them, and they just had massive amounts of distribution boxes, and people would buy them up and collect these distribution boxes. And they put them. I remember seeing on eBay, you could buy like a pack, like a distribution box of this for like, I don't know, maybe like $1,000 or $1,200, like way back in the day. Not way back, like 2-3 years ago. And because there's just so many of these out there. So then all of a sudden, first one out of the gate, 9.8. It's the only 9.8, first 9.8, blah, blah, blah. Someone spends $9,000 for it. And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, oh, there's another 9.8. Oh, okay. Well, the person that lost at the $9,000, he'll bid it up, but then he'll need someone else. So that goes like $8,000. And then all of a sudden, okay, that collector or investor or whatever, he's got his grail or whatever this Spider-Man is to him. And then another one pops up, and another one, and another one, and another one. And they just throw them in auction because they need to get rid of them. They need to move them. I mean, that's kind of like we're running into right now. We have some video games, and they just don't move. They were moving when video games were hyped up, which was nice, but then it's just like, And we don't have any of these expensive ones. We don't have like top grades or anything like that. I think the most expensive one we have is like $5,000 or $6,000, but that's like one. Most of the stuff we have is like in the hundreds, maybe the low like $1,000 or $2,000 range. So nothing extreme like this. Just middle range grade stuff. You know, keys like Mario's, things like a lot of Mario stuff, Zelda, things like that, and they are just sitting. Pretty much the video game collector market got an influx of all these speculators and investors and buying up all this stuff. But the actual collectors of video game stuff were priced out long ago. And so that just moved the needle really, really high. And so these collectors are like, well, I'm not going to pay those prices. Like, no. The difference between comic books is they've had 70 plus years of slowly building up. If you go to collect, say a Hulk 181, you've seen years, decades of this thing slowly rising in price. So that gives it a floor. With these, they just shot up out of nowhere like a penny stock, and that means they're just going to drop really, really fast. Like I said, there's still video games going up. Majority of these ones are going down. The biggest thing is they're sitting. They're not moving. Like video games aren't selling. So maybe the price hasn't moved down that much, but they're really just not moving. So you could throw them in an auction and then hope for the best, but you're probably going to get burned. And they'll go for pretty, pretty cheap. So, I mean, maybe is this a good time to pick these up at a cheap price now and then hope for hope later that they rise in value? I think video games will rise in value over time, but I think that these prices selling hundreds of $1,000s, these are like the next 10 years already baked into that price. All right, have a good day.